so these are going to be some geometric shapes that I'm going to create. And I'm going to start with the one up here in the top left corner. Some of the symbols you may not have seen before is that these little squares in front of the dimensions here, that just tells you that that's a perfect square. So you see that across in these 2 points. And this other verbiage here where it says across the corners, that just means from this corner to this corner, it's going to be 3. This is just another word for diameter without putting the diameter symbol. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to start with the one on the top left here. And then we're going to work our way going to the right, and then we'll take out the bottom row. So starting to create the title block that goes around it, I'll create a rectangle. Lower left corner will be at 0, 0, and the upper right will be at 17, 11. Let's go ahead and use the offset command. Distance is 0.25. Let's offset this to the inside. I'll create a line from this midpoint to this midpoint. I want to divide this line, so I can use the divide command. It's going to be the one with the little N underneath it. Select this line and tell it 3 segments. I don't see anything because I have to go and adjust the point styles. I'll just change it to anything on the bottom row here. Create a couple of construction lines that are vertical. And I'll click them at those nodes. So if you're not getting those to show up, it's because I have nodes selected here. That's why I'm able to click on them. Let's go ahead and erase those nodes. I'm just going to do a window going across and delete them. I'll use the EX trim command. Select the inside rectangle and click to the outside. Okay, so now I should be ready to start creating. Start at this top left corner. I'll create a rectangle. Select this point, 2.5, 1.5. Let's go ahead and offset that a distance of 0.2. And select your rectangle and make sure you move it to the inside. Next, I'll create a square. So I'll do rectangle again. Select here, 0.9, 0.9. Enter. Then let's go ahead and use the same offset, which is 0.2, this square to the inside. Now I need to place this at the corner. Right in between here is where I want the center to be. You can do this graphically by creating a line that goes from this endpoint to this endpoint, and then this endpoint to this endpoint. Then you can move this shape from that midpoint. Sorry, I used rotate. Move this object from this midpoint to this midpoint. Then you come back and delete these 2 lines. That's one way of doing it. The way I'm going to do it is using O-snaps. So I want to move these objects from its geometric center to the mid between 2 points, which is this endpoint. So click it and then click this endpoint. Choose the mirror command. Select your 2 squares. I'll just go from this midpoint to this one. Then I'll go back to the mirror command. And I'm going to select the top squares. This midpoint here to this midpoint. Let's go ahead and start trimming. And we'll notice that we can trim between here. And we'll do the same on this side. So trimming. Then I'll come and trim between here. Okay. If I want to, I can move this to the perfect center of here. And let's just go ahead and move these shapes. Once again, I can use the mid between 2 points. This endpoint to this endpoint. Then I'll shift and right click and go mid between 2 points again and choose this endpoint here and this one. Okay. Let's go ahead and create our next shape here. And I'm going to use a polygon with 6 sides. I'll place my center here, and in this case I'm going to let it select whatever size I want, and I'm going to use a inscribed or circumscribed. It really doesn't matter here because I'll come back and scale it later. So I'll use inscribed. Let's go ahead and turn ortho on, and then I'll make it about that big. Looks good to me. Now let's go ahead and scale this one to get it to the right size, so we can see that this side is 0.5. So I'll go to scale, select the polygon, enter, and I'll select this as my base point. Then I'll choose reference. So from this endpoint to this endpoint needs to be 0.5. And let's go ahead and center this one. So let's go to move. Select your polygon. If I shift and right click and I choose the geometric center of this polygon, I can place it at the mid between 2 points of that endpoint and this midpoint. Okay. Let's go ahead and draw the lines on the rest of this box. For that, I'm going to switch to the polar tracking. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm set up on 30, 60, 90s. Create a line. From this endpoint going this direction, and I can type in 0.5. Then I can go directly down to this endpoint. Then lastly, let's draw a line from this endpoint to this endpoint. Let's go ahead and copy and select your entire cube. And I'm going to go from this endpoint to that endpoint. I'll use the polar array, and I'm going to select just my newly created cube, or the copied one, enter. My center of revolution will be here. And you can see that my cube is kind of twisting and turning. Where it says rotated items, I want you to check that box, or uncheck it in this case. Now you can see that your cube is all straightened out now. And close the array. Let's take a look at the next one. I'll start with a square that's 2 by 2. So I'll go to polygon again. I'll go to rectangle. Let's create a point here, 2, 2. Let's go ahead and move this in the center right from the beginning. So let's go to move, select your square, enter. And let's move it from the geometric center to the mid between 2 points. Now, you don't have to center these. That's strictly optional and up to you. Let's go ahead and offset a distance of 0.1. And I'm going to offset this to the inside. Rotate. Select both of your squares. I'm going to shift and right click and choose the geometric center. Make sure you select the word copy. And then type in 45. Let's go ahead and create our geometric shape that's going around this. And it has 8 sides, so I'll use a polygon. The number of sides is 8. The center will be at the geometric center of this one. So you can shift and right click and choose geometric center. Select here. Is it inscribed or circumscribed? In this case, it would be circumscribed because I know the sides are touching. So I'll select this endpoint. Go back to the offset command. It should be 0.1, and then go ahead and offset this to the outside. Okay, last thing we need to do for this one is start trimming. So let's go to the trim command. And we see that this goes over. And this one will go over. You're just going to follow the picture all the way around. And I'm almost done with it, just kind of carefully making sure I'm getting everything that needs to be trimmed correctly. Okay, and there you have it for this one. You can put the circle around it, but it's strictly optional. Let's take a look at the one here at the lower left corner. I'll start with a square. Click here, and that square is going to be 2, 2. I'll go ahead and rotate this. I'm just going to use the rotate command. Select this object, my base point can be here for right now, and I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees. I'm going to move this one from its geometric center to, if I shift and right click and go mid between 2 points, that midpoint and that endpoint. Let's go ahead and use the offset command and type in 0.2. Okay, next I'm going to create a line going straight across. So I'm just going to draw a line from this endpoint to this endpoint. I'll go ahead and offset this line going up. Distance of 0.5. Okay, it tells me that my angles is at 30, 60, 90s. That's the bends that are coming off the corners here. So on my polar tracking, I'm already set up to 30, 60, 90s. And my polar tracking is activated. So let's go ahead and create a line from this endpoint. Then I'll rotate over until it stops. Now this is where AutoCAD will lie to you. You're seeing that 60 degrees, but you got to understand where the geometry is coming from. So I'll create it to this point. I'll do the same on the other side. And click here and wherever it snaps to. Let's go to fillet. Radius 0. I have multiple. Remember with the fillet command, you select on the sides that you want to keep. So I'm going to select this side and here, this side and here. Go ahead and delete this line here in the middle. Use the mirror command and mirror these 3 lines to the bottom. So I'm going to go across from this endpoint to this endpoint. I will join these lines together. That way it's going to make it a nice, easy transition when I offset it. So I'll go to Join, Offset. The 0.20 should be set. So I'll type in 0.2, Enter. Select your shapes that you just joined together. Then click to the outside. Okay. Last thing we need to do on this one is start to trim. So let's go and trim. And we see that we have this going through. And one more trim going across here. Okay, let's take a look at this one. And I'm going to start with a circle right in the middle. So circle, center diameter. Shift and right click from this mid between 2 points. Choose that midpoint and this endpoint. And the circle is 2.8. create a line down to this center. I'll rotate this line 60 degrees. Well, to do one step better for you, instead of creating this line and using the rotate command, I did forget we have the polar tracking already set up. So let's go ahead and create our line from this quadrant. And I want it to stop. And this is where one of those things you're going to be careful at this first click here. I'm just going to bring it down right to the center. So if you want to touch that and bring it over to here, it's perfectly fine. Let's do it again on this quadrant. And you're going to see that wherever this one crosses at is where you want it to go. So it's going to snap here. Okay, and at this point, I'll go ahead and put a fillet between these two, or trim if you want. I can trim and take these two pieces off. I'll choose the array polar. Select these two lines, enter. The center will be at the center of my circle. Tell it I have 4 objects. And in this case, I want to make sure I turn this associativity off and close the array. I want to highlight all of these on the inside and join them. Let's go ahead and offset a distance of 0.2. Select this object into the inside. Let's go to rotate. Select these two objects on the inside. Let's choose this center. Make sure you select the word copy. And the angle you're going to need to type in is 45. Okay, at this point I can start trimming. So I'll go to trim. And then I'll start trimming like so. I wish there was an easier way of trimming, or AutoCAD could figure this out for me, but it can in this case, so you just kind of follow around the picture. And hopefully you don't miss one of these. If you do, remember that there's an undo command, a function in this command. So for example, if I messed up there, I can always select undo and it'll bring that line back. Or I can keep trimming. So that'll save you from escaping out of the command. Okay, that one is completed. Let's create the last one here at the bottom. I'll start with a circle, center diameter again. Shift and right click and choose mid between 2 points. Go from this end point to that end point. The circle has a diameter of 3. I want to create a line going from this end point, or quadrant, I'm sorry, going right down to the center. And I want to use rotate with grips, so I'm going to select this object, select the grip here in the center. I want to select on the space bar twice, or until I see the word rotate. I want you to choose the word copy. And then I'm going to type in 30, enter, and then 60, enter, and escape. Let's go ahead and create a line from this end point right to where it intersects this point. Then I'm going to continue that line going up to this end point. Go back to the trim command. Let's trim off this piece here. And I'm going to erase this line here. Choose polar array. Select just the objects on the inside. Enter. And I'm going to select this endpoint. And then close the array. Okay. So I hope you were able to create something like this, and hope you enjoyed all of this fun stuff that we did on this one. And once again, I want to thank you for watching.